This is a demo video for atrophy for iOS. So in the menus, anything that's clickable is surrounded by brackets. Anything over here like this, the text that is not surrounded by brackets is not something that you can select. So we will choose New Game. And we instantly get prompted for a tutorial. We'll select yes. We'll probably skip some of these events. So here it's just explaining the health and stamina aspects. This tutorial is available as you go through the game from the options menu. Here it explains how some of the variables work. So this screen is kind of important. It's demonstrating to you where the default controls are, and you see here the left side is all highlighted up. So here we have up, right, down, and left in that order. And here we have our three action buttons, the top one, the middle one, and the bottom one. Right, and so now it's showing you all of them at one time, with the exception of the select button, which we'll see in a minute. Here you can change the scheme. So if we change to typical, now you see we're highlighting a much smaller area, and compact is even smaller. So here we go back to the default. And it's telling you here that the controls only appear when active, because by default they take up the entire screen. You can select here to make them display not at all or constantly. We'll start with it just in the active mode, the default. The idea being that once you are somewhat familiar with the controls, you don't have to look at them the whole time. Here it's going to explain the different attacks that you have available. And so this one down at the bottom, your conservation, basically consumes 1 unit of stamina to do 1 unit of damage across 1 unit of space. The value of the units being defined by your realization variables, or how you've leveled up as you go through the game. Right, here's the next one, the devastation one, which consumes 2 units of stamina to deal 2 units of damage across 1 unit of space. And the final one, separation, dealing 1 unit of damage across 2 units of space and consuming 1 unit of entropy or stamina. Here it's just outlining the stamina consumption for each one. We won't worry about that too much right now. Same for the distance of each action and the range of each action. And so here it's telling you how to level up using the perpetuation console, which some of this becomes a little bit more obvious as you play the game. I try not to bombard you with too much information starting out. It's telling you that how to save your game, telling you how the gates work, which some of it's a little bit self-explanatory, but I was trying to leave very little doubt about how the thing works. So here it's telling you about the select button. So it's appearing here because we have the default settings. It would be a little bit different if we had different settings, but this will only appear when active. Even if you have the constant controls on, it's highlighted white. It's pretty obvious. And that's the end of the tutorial. So now we have some beginning dialogue. We'll just skip right through that. Here it's giving you a little bit more of a refresher in case you skip the tutorial. A lot of this is redundant after watching the tutorial. But again, here it tells you forward, left, right, backward. Alright, here we go. Now we have started. So by default, the controls are taking up the whole screen, and they should highlight when we press them. So it may be a little bit difficult to see, but you see how I have a black square highlighted when I push at the top, down at the bottom. When I push down, there's another one. Left and right are here. And the idea being that I don't really have to look at the controls to know where I'm pushing. It's kind of intuitive once you've played with it for just a minute. And you see the white box popping up. That is my select button telling me that something is active. And so here I can choose to go to the console and push that, and now I'm in another menu, right? And so here I can save my game. Here I can perform the realization actions or the level up features. And so this would level up my health, this would level up my stamina. If I push back and go to the main menu again, here is the realization of others, where I can level up my 3 attacks. And leveling up each one affects the others. So if I level up separation, separation gets a double boost in distance, but the other ones get a single or 1 unit boost of separation. And these do soft cap as you go through the game. So you'll get really, really big boosts. You see how it's expanse plus 10. Extent plus 10, efficiency plus 10. Those will go down as you get to 250 and then 350 and then 550. At 550 they go to 1 and they just stay 1 from then on. The health and stamina just are 1 per 1 unit throughout the entire game. Here we have options, which this lets you view the tutorial again, or you can go back to the title. And then you can also go to the in-game information page. We'll look at that in a minute. It just outlines a lot of what is explained in this video and gives you a little bit more information. Settings, right? So here we can turn on and off the music. Right now I have it muted via the phone, but you can turn it on and off there. Same with the sound. And here's where you can go to change the touch scheme for the controls. And so I'll leave it at default, but I'll go ahead and change this one to constant so we can see the buttons. Exit. And so now you see we have this grid across the screen that just outlines all the buttons, and you can kind of see where the select button would be, but it's only lit up when it's active, right? And so if you look, you see here we have next. That's telling me that I can proceed in the forward direction. I could also in theory proceed downward, but this room is locked and stays locked for till towards the end of the game. So if I want to go up, I have to be facing in the direction of the door that I want to use, so I have to push left before the select will remain active. I have to push up, so if I'm facing this way and I won't accidentally exit the room, I can do this now, and now I can. So I just have to be in proximity to the next. If I'm way over here, it won't work. Just in general, so that's still pretty good distance, but you can't be over here in the corner. And some more in-game information dialogue. We're not worried about that right now. And so here the controls get a little bit harder to see on some of these more complicated screens, but you know, if you're using the default, you probably don't even need to see them. Right, and so here we go again, some more text. And we encounter the first enemy now, which is pretty easy. This first area is really easy, just to kind of let people get familiar with how it works. And so he'll follow me around when he's timed for attack. Then some of them, they'll all behave differently when they're not primed for attack. They won't move in, some of them retreat constantly. Anyway, so I guess I should take him out. So I can use my default attack, right? And it might take a minute. I can probably finish him off really quick if I do the devastation attack. So here we see the conservation, the devastation, and the separation. So the size of these attacks will increase as you level them up, except for separation. The range still increases, but there's nothing that appears when you do that one, except for you can see that the enemy's being damaged. And that's really just because eventually this one will get such a long range that it'll take up a large portion of the screen, and I just don't want it to become too chaotic. Some chaos is good, but I don't want it to become unplayable by any means. And so you see there, if he hits me, he knocks me back. And if I hit him, we have these the marks appear based on which attack I do. And so here we are again, another room. I'm locked in to most rooms until I defeat the enemies. So if you're looking right now, there's no next, right? And once I take him out, the next appears and I can proceed further. If some of it's a little bit hard to see on this screen, I apologize. I'm recording one phone with another phone, so. And here's another one. Let me run back to the console and we'll level up some. And we can probably, because we're starting out here at the beginning, we can probably see an instant increase in the range of the attacks. If I go to realization of others and then level up separation. So each of these tells me it'll be expanse plus 10, extent plus 10. Once I consume all my realization, which is indicated over here, now that goes away and the brackets also go away. So I can still see how much I have for each value, but it does not, it indicates that I cannot level them up any further. And my realization is now 0. This is just a total counter. This could be considered your cumulative level. Just really for information purposes, except for when the experience attained after defeating an enemy is calculated, it's manipulated with that number in consideration just to further soft cap things so the game doesn't just get ridiculously easy. And you can probably see now I already have larger attacks as we go through. We'll go through to the first boss and unlock the first gate, and so you should be able to see it increase some more. So even though I don't have to take out these enemies, I'll just go ahead and take them out. Some of them will respawn when you're in the same area. This one in particular does not. Well, he did here. Oh, he does if he's the only one. But this one's really, really slow. So if there's 2 enemies, this one will not respawn because I just don't want you to have to sit there forever and wait for him to walk onto the screen. See how long it's going to take him to come? There he is now coming from the side. The 3-dimensional features, you might notice that I'm kind of running behind some stuff here. That's just to add context to the game. Sometimes it includes a little bit more of the screen just to make things interesting, a little bit more difficult maybe, just to add some variety. So now you can see I've got 2 at one time. So I took out the first one, and they never respawn until you take them both out. But once I take him out, you see I've only got 1 foe, so the foe health is up here, and the little gray one won't come back. Alright, and so here we have a door up front once I clear these 2 enemies, and we'll try to walk through it, and we'll be told that it's locked. You encounter a lot of locked doors. And actually I need to go this way. So we'll get to the first gate console in a second. These are all already unlocked. I don't actually have to defeat the enemy right here because this area is kind of circular, and so I don't want you to have to clear the same area. It'd be hard to know which way you went, so these clear out a little bit early. A lot of the areas are like that, so once you clear a few of them, you may not have to clear that many more. And so here we have, again, it might be kind of hard to see, maybe with my character standing behind it's a little bit easier, but we have the gate console opened up here, and you see now I have the white button lit up and it tells me I can go to a console. So if I click that, I get some more text events, and now I'm back here, and you see this door right here. This was not the gate console for this door. We won't open that until later. If I go up here, we see another text event, and if I proceed into the next room, I'll encounter the first boss. Before I do that, I'm going to go level up again. He's not really hard, but just to further demonstrate, I'll take out a couple more enemies so I can have some realization potential. So as you notice, as I'm attacking, I have those 2 numbers in the top left, and the 1 changes a lot. The top number is my health, so if that depletes to 0, well, really -1, it's game over. The bottom one is my stamina, and so it's got 201 out of 201, and I can level up the max number. As I attack, that decreases, and then it goes back up. I can continue to perform actions even once it's reached 0. So it gives me a -4 value. The negative number is just basically telling you how that's being calculated, how much stamina I'm consuming per unit. If I do the conservation, we see it's -3. And those are being rounded, so the amount of stamina that you consume with each action is affected by the amount of realization that you've put into that action. So for separation, it's a factor of 4 times the separation number. For devastation, it's 4 times the devastation number, and conservation, because conservation is the divisor in all the calculations, and the other ones are the numerator. The conservation is calculated with devastation plus separation. That's why they're times 4. So it's kind of like the average of the two for conservation. Let's see here. So if I go back down, I'm back here where I started, and I'll do this one the most since it gives the most obvious benefit. You don't really ever see the change in conservation except for maybe in how the stamina decreases as you go on. The devastation will increase the effect that you have on the enemies, so you will see them. The size of the attack animation will get bigger. So you see now my attacks are a little bit bigger again. And so they would keep increasing at that relatively large rate until 250, and then it would go down to, instead of plus 10, a factor of plus 10, it'd be plus 5. And so as I proceed, so back to the stamina, you see that decreases. So I can continue to act when my stamina is 0. It doesn't stop me from acting. What it does is I lose health as long as I'm below 0. You see it's declining there. Even if the enemy's nowhere near me, it's declining. So the point is that you can't just attack constantly. You're going to have to kind of stick and move. There's a couple of different ways to do it, and depending on the situation, some ways are better than others. But you certainly can't just like corner them and pound them like that if you're going to go more than a few rooms at a time. See, I've already depleted myself to 3/4 of my health just in the demonstration of it, so you got to be mindful of that. As you level it up, it becomes less and less of a constraint, but it's always present. The stamina will also affect how much damage is dealt to me by the enemies, which may be a little bit tricky to demonstrate because everything happens so quickly. So if I let this, let me go back with just one to make it easier, and I'll make it the slow one. So if I let this one hit me now, I'm at 143 and max stamina. And we don't even see the damage register. That's because it's being rounded there. There we go. Now that he's getting me consistently, we see it going down. If I was to let this decline, alright, so now he's coming after me. I'm going to stop. And you see, now he's depleting it much quicker. So anyways, let me go back and get some more health, and we will proceed to the first boss, who again is pretty simple and not very impressive, really more of a tutorial boss than anything. If I pump this up a little bit more, there we go. And of course I can always save my game here. One more note there, when I save the game, it's going to present the date, the timestamp of when I saved. Move this back a little bit. So then when you're at the title screen, you will see the date of your last save so that you can know what you're loading. The game auto loads, so after you started the game, every time you clear an area, it's going to auto save. So when you come back into the game, you won't see the title screen necessarily. It'll just go right back. That's was engineered originally when it was kind of running online, but it's certainly still beneficial now. If you need to get back to the title for one reason or another, it's always here under options. You have return to title, and it'll warn you that you could potentially lose anything that you haven't saved manually there explicitly. Alright, so anyways, let's go to this first boss. No more procrastination. One thing that you will find can be a little bit of a trial is that when you're trying to just run through an area without defeating the enemies, if it's an area you've already cleared, especially the fast and large enemies, they will knock you around and knock you away from that exit. So sometimes it's better to clear them once when you're coming through an area than to try to just run straight through. And now we have the first boss with no real celebration or anything, but you notice he does have substantially higher health, but he's not very hard. He doesn't attack very frequently. And so see, if I use separation, I can hit him at a greater range. If I use devastation, I can't hit him when I pass him down here at the bottom. Then if I do devastation, I do more damage. And conservation will be the least impressive, but possibly the one you'll want to use the most frequently. You don't have to push the buttons repeatedly to do each of these actions. It's just set up so you can just hold them down. And you'll just attack continuously with whatever you've used, as long as you're holding the button down. So now I can proceed, it's unlocked, I get another text event, and I'm here at the next console. Just to demonstrate real quick the other control options. Some of these won't work that well for the phone. They're really designed for a tablet. The controls are always, everything is always size proportion to your screen dimensions. And so the full screen option clearly will not work if you are using a large tablet or a particularly large phone. So if we go to typical, right, instead of default, now we will have different buttons. And let me go backwards a little bit lighter, you can see them. And so now we have a more traditional D-pad with the 3 buttons right here. Right, everything still works the same though. And you see there's my select button appearing there, basically in the same spot, but the same size as these other buttons. And if I go back, I can do, so those two would probably be most useful for the phone. If I change it to compact, now I have a control scheme that is the same as it was by default, just much smaller. So I still have these same squares here, and then the select just fills up this whole area. So you don't really have to, if you have the controls not displaying, you don't really have to see where it is. You can just kind of tap there in the middle and you'll get it. But again, here's my 3 actions and my left, down, right. And if I am able to, it's really hard to play with the small controls on a phone because the buttons are really tiny. If I go back to settings and I put it on this one, this is the smallest one, minimal, which may be really hard to control on a phone. See, it's basically the same as traditional, just smaller and all the way in the corners. Again, just trying to accommodate multiple device dimensions. So let me put it back to the default. And I'm going to change this back to active so we can see how that works. So now in this lighter area you can see really obviously that these squares are gone, but they still appear when I press different buttons. So the game's somewhat lengthy. If I play straight through it, I can get through it in maybe 4 hours or so. You do have to do a little bit of just grinding up some levels at a few points, but I try to keep that from being too redundant. So anyways, appreciate you for taking the time to look at it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you very much.